Hi everyone, it's Mr. Barden here. I'm coming at you from the mill, is what we call it, this space at LSU. It's not my normal place to record this, but I was doing a lot of dissertation work and realized I still needed to get some videos for my students out. So here I am. What we're going to be talking about today is just how to add in image files to your P5 sketches. This is going to come in handy when we start adding animations to our sprites and just need some kind of image to display. So I'm going to show you just how to load in the images and just for now display them on the canvas. Later, we'll be able to put them on certain things, but for now, we're just going to start off, relatively simple. So before we hop into that, if you enjoy the videos, like seeing what you see, definitely consider, like, comment, subscribe, all the general YouTube stuff. It does help out the channel quite a lot. Also, I'll be putting, the code that I make here in the description. So definitely check this out, see how we're getting from A to B. And, if you find some cool images and want to, show them in a sketch, definitely, share links to those sketches down below. I love seeing what the community does. So loading in these images is not as hard as you might think it would be. First, we have to tell P5 where to find the image. And there's a few different ways to go about that. Primarily, that is, hosting the image online somewhere and just putting a link to that. That works just fine. In fact, if you check out some of the textbook lessons, that we go over how to do that. I'm not going to do it very much right now because personally, I like, loading up the images into the sketch locally. There's pluses and minuses to both of them. Primarily the plus of having things remotely hosted is that, you don't have to, worry about storage space and that kind of issue, but, you're not the one in control of it. If someone else moves or deletes that image, you can't do anything about it because you're not the one hosting it online. By doing this locally in the sketch right here, then you don't have to worry about, dead links or things getting moved or deleted or things of that nature, but you are limited on storage size. So real quick, if you were to, in P5, click over on where it says hello, comma, whatever your username happens to be, and click on My Assets, I'm just going to open it in a new tab, you'll see your assets. This is the same thing that, where we have all the sketches and collections of sketches. What's important, though, is that you notice that every account has 250 megabytes of total storage. So if you have a ton of massive images and files, they're going to eat up that space. I'm at about 20% of my total usage. The way we get around this is by having very small files and only needing them when we need them. But again, that is just something to keep in mind. So I'm going to be, again, talking about how to locally add these things, but they will take up space in your P5 account. If you're just doing this for a class, not an issue at all. But if you actively use things, you may have to find yourself going in and, deleting old stuff or finding ways to host it on somewhere else that has more storage space. Anyways, there we are. Let's get into this. So before we do anything in our sketch, we first have to load up these files. And what I like to do is you just go right here, open up this little files editor window. And right here, there's this triangle and we can do a few things. I like to make a folder. And as you can tell by the autofill, one that holds all the images, stuff that holds the sounds, basically just be able to organize things inside of the appropriate folders. So I just said make a folder, create a folder, give it a name. There it is. Now this little file editor right here is, if I was going to be polite about it, I would say it doesn't have a ton of features that you might want. If I'm being just real with you, this has no features and is barely a file editor. But we can see the files, and that's the important bit. So if you click on the folder you've just made, and then the triangle next to that, right here, then this is where we can start editing things. You can make subfolders, upload files, and all of that. You cannot move your files once they are loaded up in here into their location. That's why I think it's kind of bare bones and stupid. But, like I said, computers are powerful, but stupid. So again, if you load your files up just globally, that's fine, but you can't put them in the file later on. You'll have to delete them and re-upload them in the right spot. So make sure that if you're making a folder like I am, you select the folder, you click on the little triangle to the right, and then we go to upload file right there. So I conveniently have, just right here, this abstract face image I found for free. It is loaded up, and we see that it pops up there, and then it appears in this folder right here. You can tell things are in folders because they're indented. If you click on this bigger triangle right here, it'll close the folder and open it. I like to have mine open so I can see all the stuff. Another thing is if you are on the file and click this there, you have the option to rename it. So if it's not, a name you like or is easy to remember, I definitely recommend renaming it. You can make this a little bigger and see the whole name if you need to. So once we've loaded this in, that's like 30% of the work. We hop back over into our JavaScript file. And again, this is all with P5. If you were to do this just in pure HTML canvas work, that would be a little more complex than what we're going to do right now, but with P5 it makes things nice and easy. So first we just need a container to hold everything. So background image is what I like to call them. Just declare that globally, and then we're going to want to pull up function preload. Preload is a function that exists in P5, and it basically just loads up all of the resources you have before the setup function runs. So this is very useful for loading in things, images, sounds, anything that's not being generated by the sketch here. I like to use it just to set up all my stuff before things run. That way we don't get into issues later on in the sketch where you're trying to access and use something that hasn't been loaded yet. For something as simple as this, we're not going to have a very big difference, but you may notice it takes just a second longer for your sketch to load up before it runs, and it may just say loading right here in the corner, and then it'll start. Again, this doesn't take very long at all, especially with how small we're going to be doing things right here. So I'm going to say background image gets assigned to be the result of the load image function. And all we have to do is tell the computer where to find this image as a string. So this is where, if you are hosting this online somewhere, which I'm not going to get into right now, you would give it a URL to that image, and that's totally fine. We're not hosting this remotely. We're just going to look at it locally. So I've got my folder here, images, / tells us to look inside of the folder, and then image.jpeg. It's a JPEG. So a few things. One, you have to have your extension here. Two, you have to have your file spelled exactly the same as you see it over here. And any folders and subfolders you need to have appropriately spelled as well. If anything is improperly spelled, the computer will not be able to find the image. At this point, you notice it said it was loading for just a second, and then it did the stuff. It wasn't anything new. But now, whenever we need to use this image, we can just pull up this container for the image. So if I, instead of saying put the background at 220, said put the background at background image, boom, there's the image. So that's it in a nutshell. I do want to point out a few things that, in this case, we're putting the image on the canvas. So the image is getting, squished and reformatted in order to match the canvas. This might be a little clear if I made this, 800 by 600. You notice as we were changing this, the image is getting stretched and distorted from what it may or may not have been. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that if you have an image in a very particular resolution, you may notice it gets distorted in various ways depending on how you're using it. So you may either have to change the resolution of your image, change how it's being used. That's kind of up to you at that point. But that's basically just how we can load in an image. If we wanted to load in multiple images, we could do that as well. You need a container for your image. You need to use the loadImage function, tell it where to go, and then we just say, hey, use this image. So that's there. I don't know what this would do, but let's look. Let's just see what that does. So if we were to load this up, you can see a lot of the info right here of, for that image. So you can see a bunch of info if you might need that. But, this is telling us, hey, we have loaded this image. Here's all the info. It's all right there. I feel like I'm rambling at this point, but really that's all it is, just for loading and displaying an image. From there, you can, begin to experiment and see, what happens if I click on stuff or move things around and, all of that. We can do a whole lot, but for the context of this course, the one I'm teaching, Programming Digital Media, of which the textbook is in the description, clever plug there, we mainly just display an image. Later on, I'll be talking about how to specifically use these images with the library P5 Play and how to, create these animations and add them on top of our sprites. So that way the sprite, looks like a thing and it, behaves like it looks. So that's kind of our ultimate goal. So with that being said, I'm going to start wrapping it out now. So, if you learned something, enjoyed it, definitely like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube bits. It is very helpful. In my next video, we'll talk about how to implement, images onto sprites and have those change and adapt. But that's going to be it from me today. So everyone have a great day, and I'll see you all the next time that I see you. Bye.